Awesome.
Hey, Vicky.
Hello. Are you in States now or you're in UK?
No, I flew back to London on Tuesday, so I'm in the UK right now.
Okay, good.
It's early for me. I don't normally wake up not this productive.
Well, me either. But the great thing with the avatar is definitely that you can be like full pajama and super messy hair.
Arnold at the food table is just making fun of me for that.
Great. Looks like we have almost full house. We have lots of people. Good morning, everybody. Feel free to say how you're joining us in the chat. We are gonna kickstart the event, and hopefully we will have a little bit more people joining. Just a little bit help you to navigate the space. So when you can, like, when we are talking on the stage, everybody can hear us. But if you're sitting in the table, then only the people who sit together with you in the same table can hear you. And you can teleport yourself around. If you move your mouse to other table on the seat, you will see these green bubbles coming up. And if you click, and then you can teleport yourself. And if you click room, you can see other people's profile. If you click on their name, you can follow them. You can also connect with them, for example, on their LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever. So feel free to connect with everybody. After our talk, we are gonna leave the room for everybody to have networking, so you can teleport yourself around the table and meet each other.
Well done, Vicky. Normally that's my job to do that.
Oh, well, because you said since you already woke up so early, so I thought that I'll make your morning a little bit easier.
Caring of you.
Great, it's 9:04, so I'm gonna kickstart. So, well, hello everybody, my name is Vicky. I'm head of program and community in the Shortcut. And at the Shortcut, we are the largest talent accelerator in the Nordic, based in Helsinki, Finland. And what we do is that we equip and support talent with the skills and connection to either enter work or to start their own company. We are non-profit, so all of our events are free. We have different kind of training for employability, and also we have talks like this for inspiration, and then also entrepreneurship training that basically we teach you everything you need if you want to start your own business. So please follow us on our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and subscribe to our newsletter. Just search the Shortcut, and then you will be able to see us. And we are gonna start hosting online breakfast on Roomkey in this room bi-weekly or every week. We will invite experts from the field to talk about different topics related to entrepreneurship. So you're very welcome, and stay tuned. Well, without further ado, I'm gonna introduce our speaker today, Don, CEO of Roomkey. So Don, if you want to introduce yourself to the audience.
Hey, everybody. It's nice to meet you. Thank you all for coming. Well, I really appreciate everyone's time this morning. I want to just do a quick run through because I know sometimes we have some echo issues. So if there's anyone at your table who has an unmuted mic, if you could just ask them now to mute themselves. And if that doesn't work, if you click on their avatar with your finger, it'll bring up a little menu, and there's a settings option, and you can actually mute the person yourself during the event if they have some feedback from speaking. But other than that, I really appreciate everybody coming here and appearing as a well-dressed avatar this early in the morning. Thank you.
Awesome. And a little bit about yourself.
Yep. So my name is Don, and this is a company I started back in 2018. I was living in San Francisco at the time, and what I was doing out there is I had started a venture capital fund, and it was specifically for virtual reality companies. And I had been running the fund since 2015, and so it was about 2018 or so when I first started coming up with this idea and thinking through how important it would be if you could create a product that brings back those moments of serendipity that you have at a real event. And when I was running the venture fund in San Francisco, um, every month we would be investing into different virtual reality founders. But in order to meet those founders and to kind of help build my own personal network, I was hosting one meetup every month. And those meetups were anything from like 20 people to 200 people. It depended what was the content that we were going for that month. And I would get messages all the time from people saying, "Hey, I'm really glad that I came to the event because I met so and so in the audience." And I started to really realize that, the power of events and communities is meeting other people. And that's so important. If you think about some of the relationships in your life, you probably just happened to sit next to them at an event, or, was introduced to them while you were at an event. And those are really powerful relationships. And so in 2018, I stopped doing full-time investing and started trying to figure out a way to build a product that replicates the feeling of a real person event, but online. And so that has led me on the journey to the product that we're all sitting in today. It's been almost 3 full years of working really hard to try to make this product happen. And it's very unique in the sense that this is a virtual reality product, and yet all of us in this room are able to access it from a phone or from a computer. So I can get into a little bit more about my passion for VR, but that's a quick update on the things I've done from the venture fund to starting this company here.
Okay, so you started in 2018. So obviously it's not COVID, but it came out at a very perfect time because as an event organizer and community manager, I totally agree that it's the kind of key for event is that when you go there and you meet really interesting people around, and then when COVID hit, obviously everything like went to like shit. And then when I was searching for a virtual event, like all the event organizer in the world doing, then I found Roomkey. So it was like the feeling when you went to events that motivates you. Like, is there a problem that kind of kick you to start, like some problem that you identify?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think how many people in this room have either started a company to date or are planning on starting one? Give me maybe just a thumbs up with the green emoji if you are, or a thumbs down if not. Okay, cool. So I think that's awesome to see. I love being in rooms with entrepreneurs. So I would say, the most important part of any business is identifying the problem. That's where you build your whole thesis around from the get-go. And so for me, the problem that I felt like I had identified was that video solutions didn't quite um, lower the social anxiety for meeting people. And so if you think about, walking into a room full of people you don't know, it's a pretty awkward process. And it takes a lot of guts to just walk up to somebody and to introduce yourself, and hopefully they're the right person. But if not, more than likely you have to do that 10 times. And when I tried to recreate that feeling of networking through video calls back in 2018, I think the thing that was fairly apparent right off the bat is that people felt pretty self-conscious when they were just meeting random people through a video call. Those people were looking into their room. You couldn't do it at 7 or 9 in the morning because you probably are still in your pajamas, as we had noted earlier. And so that problem of, it's kind of hard to meet people at all hours of the day online was something that I really focused in on. And then because of my background in virtual reality, I felt like adding an avatar to represent yourself was a good way where you could still appear and have presence as if you were there, but not need to go through kind of the dance of cleaning up your apartment and getting dressed and doing all those things that you have to do in order to make a real video event.
That's true. I have met quite few people telling me that they feel a lot more comfortable meeting here in this like virtual reality room, that they feel kind of more outgoing and they don't feel shy and awkward because they don't need to worry about all those things. I'm a very outgoing and extrovert and I like to meet people in real life, but I totally understand that like it feels really comfortable and I'm still in my pajama, so this is really great. Well, so you have worked with like in the space for a long time and you have invested in many companies yourself. So obviously I think these are all like big advantage, but what would you say has been like maybe like pivotal and like the biggest advantage in your ability to get started and succeed with this business, like funding, so
Yeah.
support or co-founder or knowledge of the space?
Yeah. So I think every business, when you're starting your company, has its own unique journey to get going, and it's really dependent on the backgrounds of the founders and kind of like where their network is. So I think I'm going to share my story, but it's one that's very unique to me, and I'll kind of explain why. And so I think the most important thing when you're listening to my stories is to think about what are your unique advantages that you've built over the last, call it, 2 years, whether that's with your technical know-how or your network or people like Vicky that can help you, meet the right people. It's important to really think through, what are your unique advantages. Um, so just to go tell a little bit of the story. So I had started a venture fund, as I had mentioned, and one of the events I was hosting in, it's funny how this all kind of comes together, but one of the events I was hosting in 2017 was for virtual reality founders at inside of a boardroom at a venture capital fund's office, and the venture fund's name was General Catalyst. And so at that time, I hadn't really thought of anything more than the fact that they were willing to pay for dinner. And so I was inviting different people, and then they were paying for dinner, and that was really all I thought about it at the time. And the next day after we had hosted this dinner for all these VR founders, I got a call from the venture fund General Catalyst, and this is 2017. And basically, what they said was, "Hey, we really like the people that you brought to the office the other day. We think that they're strong founders. We don't know too much about virtual reality, but we understand that's something that you have expertise in. So if we were to give you some money, could you invest on our behalf? So basically, you have the ability to invest into companies from our fund, but without being an employee of the fund. So you can still manage your own venture fund. So that was a really unique opportunity for me because I was now able to put in money to different startups from my own fund, and then also pair that up with money from this larger General Catalyst fund. And they're somebody who is well known within the Silicon Valley area. They have a strong brand. They invested into Snapchat early, and so they had a good amount of money that I could tap into. Now, I did that for a while, and eventually called them one day and said, "Hey, the VR industry, I'm not sure is really unfolding at the pace that we want it to be unfolding, and I don't feel comfortable, or it's the responsible thing to do to continue investing your capital nor my time and capital into this industry." However, after spending all this time with different founders, I feel like I have a unique thought around a potential business. And I started to kind of explain this idea of turning everyone into avatars, creating these beautiful virtual venues, having it accessible from your phone. And it was a far away idea at that point when I was describing it. But because of my relationship with them, they were willing to take that first step and help fund me. And so, that is one of the biggest advantages I had early on getting this company going, was because of what I was doing before in my career and the people that I was working with. I was able to, get initial funding for this idea early on. And really this idea and the ideas that you're working on, it's very important to kind of pair up your funding resources with the complexity of the early product idea. And so, had I not had those connections, then we would have needed to build this business in a very different way, because we wouldn't have had, a capital injection up front. And so, I don't necessarily think that there's one way to build a company. If you don't have the investor resources, that is totally okay, for two main reasons. Number one, there are people that have those connections that are more than willing to help you, as long as you can kind of prove, with the business you have, that things are working and starting to happen. And so the money will come. And the second reason is because most great companies really started from a lack of resources, which forces creativity. And so I think for the companies that are able to bootstrap early on and get through that initial phase, it's much more impressive to an investor to see that someone had the guts and the ability to do that, than to just come up with an idea early on. And so I think if you need funding resources, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but just try to scale back the complexity of the product a bit and start to show some early signs of traction, and then the money will follow that afterwards.
Cool. There's a lot of things I want to go dive into, but let's start with so basically fundings and connections. So like for example, I mean you are one of the most active VR AR investors in the world, with like more than 30 startups in your portfolio, and so like as a seed investor perspective, like do you have any tips or tricks to give to the future founders to be in the room, especially maybe like for example in the nature of VR product, it is maybe a little bit more difficult to show like a proper product beginning, because it costs a lot, so it's really difficult to kind of like show this room like, hey, I have this, so do you have money? Like you already need money to build this. So what's your tips and tricks for the future founders, especially for their products kind of like in this space?
Yeah. So within the context of virtual, is there anybody in the audience building a virtual reality product or something that is fairly capital intensive early on? Cool. Okay, I see one. That's Vanessa. It looks like. So AI, VR, AR, computer vision, and then anything in healthcare and many other industries are definitely more capital intensive early on because of the nature of the technology. And so I think the thing that really helped me convey the idea early on is that there was another company out there, who was acquired at that point. They had already been purchased, but they were doing something somewhat similar with avatars. And I saw that there was potential to translate what they were doing into events. And so I remember for the first few investor pitches, I would literally walk around with somebody else's product, a few different products actually. And I was showing the investors, this is kind of the concept. It's possible. We just need the money to get there.
Cool. And then like let's talk about a little bit in the space. So you mentioned that you were not very comfortable like at kind of at the middle of the process, that how the space is like unfolding, the VR. So like what are your thoughts on the innovation happening in the space, like beyond Roomkey and the company, like is because there is quite a lot going on now, especially after COVID hit.
Yeah, it's I think virtual reality is starting to actually have its moment, and you can see that in the numbers. There's a few different metrics out there that you can track in the VR industry that tell you how many headsets are existing. And so if you look at the number of connected Oculuses in the last month, There's about 4 million of them. And really, the iPhone had its kind of tipping point moment when there was about 10 million iPhone devices out there, and the majority of those 4 million Oculus headsets were sold within the last year, to the point where now they can't keep the right amount of supply in the supply chain because people are buying them so quickly. So I'd say we're about 40% of the way towards that tipping point, and the tipping point is defined as there's enough headsets and hardware devices out there to support VR that you can build a really big company, consumer company around that. No, we were not sure when this moment would be, and so what we did was we kind of built a VR product that works outside of a headset before we focused on a headset. And so this product actually works all the way down to a lower end Android device or an iPhone 7, like an early model, rather than it works in a headset. And so that's something that we've thought about for a few years now and have been trying to de-risk the moment when we need to wait for. But now that Apple's looks like they're coming out with a headset, now that Facebook's starting to really sell these, and you're also seeing some pretty strong revenue numbers from a lot of the VR products that are in the gaming world. But now you're starting to see a parallel market starting to be built around virtual meetings and virtual events using headsets and avatar technology. And so it feels like this is probably the 12 to 18-month period where we hit that 10 million headset mark and things start to really take off for the whole industry. I think they'll have the Bitcoin moment fairly soon.
Did you think COVID pushed a bit on this process?
Yeah, I think being locked down and not able to venture out into the real world naturally created this feeling for being present with others. And VR is one of those technologies where if you put on a headset and you've really had a good experience, you do forget where you are, and you have this kind of unbelievable amount of presence even though you're not somewhere physically. And so it's a lot like teleportation in the sense that you can feel like you're going somewhere else without without needing to do a lot of travel. And so that's how I really think about it. So I think it's the perfect way to bring people together during the pandemic, and you're starting to see that in the headset sales as well, as we had mentioned.
Yeah, I've seen more and more of this. Like, there's also a headset like you can just kind of simply place your phone in, and then it turns your phone screen to a VR. So that's kind of like a lower bar to start. And like last question about the space, like the the future of the VR and then the technology, like how does it look like to you? For example, like in recruitment, talents, or I don't know, even regulations, because I remember last year when when COVID was like super bad. It's still pretty bad now. I was like imagining, oh my God, like I'm an event organizer, and then if this is gonna continue for years, like what can we do? What else can we do? And then I was imagining that if I'm gonna throw like a big event, and like maybe in the future you will be able to attend the event like in your home, and before the event starts, like a week ago, you will get a box shipped to your home, and then with like all these little things you need, and then a VR headset depending on what kind of ticket you buy, and then when it's event day, everybody around the world just like put on the headset, and then you're in the space in the event. And I think that's something that like I value in-person events a lot, but that's some kind of future that I would be looking into, that I will be really hopeful to see that.
Yeah, I to really talk about the future, and this is probably a decade away, but it was maybe 2 years ago, and I went to this building where there was a company that was working on full immersion, everything from your body to your mind being immersed into VR. And so what they did was they put me into this like skin tight black suit. And it goes across your whole body, and it has little markers within it, and then it also has haptic feedback built in, and I'll explain what that is in a second. And then they strap me into this treadmill. It's called the Virtuex Treadmill. It's basically like a harness, and then your feet are wearing frictionless socks, and you're standing on this platform where when you run, the harness keeps you in place, but your feet are moving as if you're actually walking, and it feels like you're walking on this platform. And then they put you in a headset to top it all off. And when somebody hits you in the virtual world in your chest, the physical vest that you're wearing has a little vibration of where that they hit you in the physical world. And so projecting that forward, this becomes a thing where people are quite literally able to live inside of a headset where they, sit in their harness instead of a chair, instead of a desk chair, they sit in their harness. Instead of opening up a computer, they put on the headset, and then they're able to attend events and not only just, move around the room like with this product, but actually reach out and shake people's hands and get that haptic feedback back to, the hand that they're shaking. That I think is kind of the ultimate future of where this is going. And so the way that we see this product is a bridge to help us get there and making it accessible for what's in your pocket today, rather than what's in your shopping cart of the future when Apple comes out with their headset.
It's starting to sound more and more like Black Mirror.
Yeah.
But
we're trying to prevent against too much of that.
I mean, it sounds super cool, and I remember, I think 1 or 2 years back, I met actually one team that came to our like this hackathon, and what they came out with is like also a VR with the headset, and to for like releasing stress at work. So like, is there? I think there is already like this technology used in like more kind of medical or therapy space for people who don't have the ability to move, or could use it to, I don't know, release stress, anxiety, or pain in hospital or in, like, I don't know, therapy center.
Yeah, so the first VR company I ever met, this was back in 2015. I don't know if I'm going to be able to remember the name of them, but so they would go into hospitals of places that had burn victims. And if you've been in an accident or a fire where you have, a body full of burns, unfortunately, you have to change the Band-Aids on a daily basis. And that is a very, very painful process. If you can imagine unwrapping Band-Aids off of burn marks each day and then rewrapping them. So what the company was doing is they would put the burn victims, kids and adults, into a headset, and it was a high quality headset, so it really created, the feeling of being there. And then they would put them into a essentially like a world full of snow, and then the person in the headset would play a little game where you go around, and I don't remember what you were doing, something with penguins. The penguins are running around, and just simply by being able to move the attention of the burn victim to a world that's cold, that appears colder, and distracts the person by giving them a game to do while their doctor is taking off their bandages, they were able to reduce the amount of opioids that they were giving these patients by about 30%. And so, that's just one of the millions of use cases for where VR can help us. It's also great for exposure therapy. So another company I saw back at that time period, for arachnophobia, people that were afraid of spiders, they would put you into a virtual headset, and then they would have one spider come out at a time and basically expose you to your fears, until you at some point became numb to it and started to get over it. And that's something that they've also used for victims with PTSD after coming back from war. and a few different types of things that VR can solve. So it's definitely going to make a big impact in the medical field, and it's something that we've already seen happening. But medical is not consumer, and you're not going to be reading about um, the same level of kind of consumer adoption of a medical app as a consumer social app. And so VR definitely is existing and making money in those enterprise solutions, but we're more excited about when that crosses over to the consumer, because then it becomes kind of an acceptable thing to do in the hospital, at work, or by yourself when you're hanging out at your house.
That's really great news and like very beautiful idea. We're gonna approach the Q&A session soon, so I'm gonna wrap this up with the question about like, do you have advice that you would like to share with people thinking about starting a company in the VR space, or even just like thinking of starting a company? As a person who have walked the path, please share some of your wisdom with us.
Yeah, I think the company, the journey of building a company is obviously very hard, and it's unique to everybody. But the common trait across any successful company, and I think you'll see this in pretty much every startup that's been able to succeed, is that they have a great team. That's really important. Um, that is probably 101 for being able to get going, because if you have a really good idea and it's a big idea, it's not going to be possible to do alone. Um, and it's not going to be possible to do for, a cheap budget either. And so, I think again, that is probably the most important thing you can have, is being able to assemble the right group of people, and then being able to, whatever scale of funding you have, match the product with that as you build. That is, critically important. So John, my co-founder, I see is in the audience. John, if you want to give us a thumbs up if you're listening. Meeting him in 2018, really the inception point of the company, because until I met him, it was just an idea in my head. I didn't even know if it was something that was possible to build. And then, he was able to take what was an idea and turn it into the functioning product. So that is something you can't do alone. So I think, having the right co-founder and the right team is really important. People that understand what you're trying to do from a mission standpoint, but also people that have clearly shown interest in the space even before. I think one of my favorite ideas or stories to tell from John and I meeting early on was the first time we sat down in person. He showed me a video of him on stage doing a talk about virtual reality and where the industry was going. And he was talking about Zoom VR, and essentially, what does it look like when the next kind of Zoom is created in VR? And he told me, whether I'm with you or not, this is a product that I want to build. And so I think, being able to really get a group of people together walking in the same direction is important. And so, taking the time to build the team early on is going to ultimately lead to the longest runway there. So that would be the number one bit of advice, is get a really strong team. And then from there, you can start to work on all the problems that come with the startup. But without the team, then that common point that all companies have, then probably nothing's impossible, or nothing is possible without that early on.
I love this. You know what? Our next online breakfast topic is how to find your right co-founder. So
Yeah.
This is super smooth. So you heard the man.
We didn't even plan that.
No, I love it. I was like, oh, so smooth. I'm gonna sell the next one. Yeah, but our next online breakfast, we are gonna talk about finding your right co-founder, and I agree that also shows that startup with balanced co-founder team raised more money, and it's like they grow faster, they reach the scaling stage faster than the solo entrepreneurs. And if some people in the audience are starting their own business, I think everybody all feels the loneliness, and you feel alone when you're like, trying to do the heavy lifting, especially from the beginning. So this is great, and if you're interested, please come join us next week. I'm gonna open the floor for Q&A. So if you have questions for Don, you can raise your hand. If you check at the right hand side, of the, and I will run over there and give you mic.
Vicky, we can invite them up on stage too, if you want to do that.
Okay, cool. I will invite on stage.
Yeah, thank you for the talk. It was really interesting and insightful. So I was also a bit interested to know, how do you delineate yourself as the Roomkey app from other similar softwares or applications such as Mozilla Hubs, which also provides a similar type of environment for interaction? So.
Yeah, great question. So Mozilla Hubs, excuse me, Mozilla Hubs, for everyone's reference, is a web VR version of how you can bring people together, and it's all web-based. And then there's also a few, oops, I clicked off stage. There's another few products out there, one from Facebook and one from Microsoft. That's a similar product with avatars. The way that we see it is that the industry is so early on right now that we're happy with anyone starting to succeed, because that's going to then set off kind of that tidal wave moment. So, for example, as a Bitcoin company in 2017, before the first wave of hype, you didn't really care who started to take off, because as long as one person was running and off to the races, then the rest of the industry was growing with it. And so, we really want to see Mozilla Hubs succeed. We really want to see Microsoft's products succeed. We want, all these different companies to start to succeed, because that then puts avatars into the press. And then we feel that our product, is really well built and is easy to use. And so naturally, as more people understand avatars and start to look for solutions, we think we'll be one of the hubs that they'll stop at. And then there's some technical differences. Like, for example, Mozilla Hubs is limited in the amount of people in the room. I think it's like 12 people. They're limited in the avatar styling and clothing options that you can have, because it's hard to run this on the web and things like that. But I think really what it comes down to is we want to see everyone succeed, because then we can be a part of that group of successful people.
Great. Thanks. Do we have more questions from the audience? You can simply click raise your hand and I will invite you on the stage. Anything works. Yes. Okay, I'm gonna... Hello.
Hello. Hi, Vicky. Hi, Don. Hi.
Hello.
I think you're mute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay, thanks. So, yeah, nice to meet you virtually again. My question is, do you see, not everybody has VR sets, right? So do you see that as something which stops the popularity of all these kinds of new VR specific startups, or how do you see it go happening in the future? You see everybody buying VR headsets or see some other new technology which
What kind of a device are you on?
What kind of a device are you on?
I am on an iPhone.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool.
If you could just mute yourself, sorry.
If you could just mute yourself, sorry. Otherwise, we'll have an echo.
Okay.
So on the iPhone, if you turn your phone sideways, you'll get a wider view into the room. And just doing that, adding an extra inch to the screen, it really helps you feel more immersed into the virtual world. And so the way that we think about, the answer to your question around will people buy headsets and at what pace is that we've tried to de-risk that as much as possible. So you're able to attend this virtual reality environment from your iPhone right now. And even though you only have a few inches of screen space, you can feel like you're somewhat immersed within the world. So that for us is the most important thing to focus on, is kind of bringing consumers along that bridge towards wanting to be an avatar in a virtual world. And first starting with an iPhone and an Android device, and then moving into a headset down the line once there's enough sales of headsets out there.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. And I saw another hand. Was it Julia or Arnold? Okay, I'm gonna get Arnold on stage. Hello, hello.
Hello. Thank you for the example, Don, about the burns and bandages where VR has a huge impact. So your current application is around meetings and seminars and everything around that. Are you, from your strategy point of view, planning to do it in other areas like education, or I'm thinking about behavior change, as you talked about the burns, if you can get people to, well, their behavior.
Yeah, I think education is definitely something that's of interest. We have recently been in talks with a university in the United States that is interested to white label the app. And so basically they'll have their own app for their university where students can see what's happening on the virtual campus. They can attend classes, and they can, do a lot of the stuff they do on a real campus, but on the virtual campus. That's something that is definitely of interest for us. But what we're trying to do is focus in on the idea of community events where people benefit from networking and meeting each other at the events. And so our number one focus right now is people that run meetup groups and strong communities around the world. So we're starting there, but there's definitely the opportunity to move into the education space down the line. And we do have some schools that are already using our product for their students. For example, one of them is called the Think Global School. And traditionally, they would take students around the world to 4 different countries throughout a year of high school. They obviously can't do that right now. And so rather than traveling, they're using our product to do their classes and then also their school-wide announcements. So they'll get 40 kids into an auditorium room, something very similar to this venue. They'll have the teacher, actually the principal, up on stage, and he'll make announcements to the students, and then the students can move between the tables and talk to each other afterwards. And so that's a really cool way that we're starting to see this product be used, and where we can still provide it to people for free. And that's something that's important to us, is growing the user numbers.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you. But also around behavior change, because I think it's also the way in which people communicate. Maybe in this VR reality, people are more easy, more open-minded, more willing to have perhaps even honest conversations, which are a bit confronting in real life. Whereas now in this virtual reality, you can be more open. Do you have experience with that?
Yeah, the principal of that school messaged me the other month and said it's noticeable that the students who are typically introverted are talking a lot more as a virtual avatar. And I thought that was really interesting because they know who are the students that are talkative and answer questions, and they know who are the students that remain more quiet. And so they've been able to see a difference there just in using the product. That I think was really interesting. And then if anyone in the room wants to host any sort of events where it's a conversation based event where it's a hard subject to talk about, I think that's a really great use of our product as well, because it does allow you to be a little bit more honest without feeling like you're revealing too much of the personal side of things. And so that's really healthy, I think, to have these conversations as an avatar. As silly as it might sound, there's definitely an advantage to having an avatar rather than a video when it comes to honest conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Cool. We are reaching the end of the event. Well, thank you very much, Don, for this, and I'm pretty happy that we kickstart the online breakfast. Oh, there is another question. Okay, I'm gonna get the last question on stage, and well, we're gonna leave the room open later on, and I think me and Don might stick around a little bit longer. We will travel around the table so you can talk with us. But okay, Diana, I invited you on stage now.
Hi. Okay, this is a
Hello.
different view. Hello. I accidentally actually pressed the button, raise your hand. But anyway, I have a question. Well, I have an experience. I did an internship with a VR and AR startup. They were at the very early stage developing, their product. So they were struggling was to find, the right niche or the right partners. And of course, proving the funder, the people that were like funding that project, that the project would be successful, especially if you don't know who your customer or potential customers would be. So what type of advice you would give someone that is at the very early stage area, let's say developing their VR project?
What was the company?
It's a Swedish VR company. It's called Oliver's. They are doing great progress right now, but I think that's something that I noticed at the very early stage.
Cool.
It's called Oliver's. I don't know if you know them.
Oliver, I'll write that one down. Olive VR. I'm sure that's how they spelled it.
Yeah.
So I think with any new technology, it's very hard to find the right adoption area early on. This is something that we've been working on for years now, and I think there's probably two things that need to collide when you're looking for the right fit. The number one thing is having the ability to really observe what's happening and try to understand both within your own product, but then the world in general, trying to understand, what consumers are interested in using and how they're using it, and looking for, the right trends and the right bits of data to support your ideas. So for example, we really went through about a year's period where we were jumping back and forth between this being a product for events or a product for meetings, and those are, similar products, but they're actually quite different in the messaging and in the acquisition strategy. And so, that required us to really take in a lot of feedback and then let that drive some of the decisions around the product. And then the second, and I'll connect these variables, the second variable that's important is having strong vision and then being able to hold on to that vision, which is somewhat counterintuitive to the first point. So, for example, when we first came out with this idea in 2018, it was basically Clubhouse, but for VR. That was like the original inception of the idea, was this concept that anyone can have public rooms. You can bring people into those rooms. They're great for networking. And that was something that, if you look at, the first pitch deck, really that was what we were trying to build. But then over the course of the next 18 months, as the product unfolds and develops, there's certain limitations that you have to work with. One of the limitations for us was the number of attendees that could be fit into a room. And so when COVID started happening, there were event companies that were, having thousands of people at their events, and that was what people were asking for. The customers were asking for, really large scale events, but we were capped at about 40 people, I believe so, like 40 avatars in the room. And so that kind of made us, and really made me think more towards, okay, if that's one of our limitations, and the users of events want larger numbers, then maybe we have to build a product that is for meetings, because meetings naturally have a smaller amount of people that are there. And so, we would kind of jump between this original vision of trying to build the Clubhouse of VR, but also at the same time, building a meetings product. And that process was healthy, but at the same time, I think unhealthy, because what was more important, in my opinion, was sticking with one vision and really, delivering on that vision and getting it going. And so I think, we're probably a good example of a company that has gone back and forth and back and forth to go after. And therefore, we have taken a lot of time to really commit to that niche. Now we're at a point where, we know what we're doing. We're building a product for meetup organizers and communities to come together and in a very unique way. But it did take us a long time to really be able to, put that down on paper and not have the feeling of looking backwards. So, I think probably the most important thing, as much as it matters to get the feedback, you really need to have a clear vision in your own head of what you want to build and what, is working, and the thesis that you're pursuing, and then sticking to that as much as possible to get it over the finish line.
That sounds great. Thank you very much for your answer.
Thanks. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot again, everybody, for joining, and thanks, Don, for joining us. I'm gonna wrap up here, and Don, are you gonna stick around a little bit if there's still people?
Yeah, I'll come hop into the table, say hi to people.
Okay, cool. Well, hunt him down, try to find where he is, and now the room is free for everybody. You can feel free to jump around the table and talk to each other and get some connection, and hopefully we will see you again on our next online breakfast. Awesome.
And anyone at the green table, if you just put your finger and mouse on the screen and click other tables, you'll be able to teleport around. I'm gonna hop into the light blue table up front right now.